Hi, my name is Daniel. I came into foster care because the state of Indiana stepped in and took myself and my sisters from our bio family because they couldn't sustain taking care of us, and this is my story. I think my earliest childhood memory was the day that it actually happened when we were taken from our bio family. And that was, I remember being in a car, it was the old metal car. I was in the back seat, and my bio father was drinking in the front seat, and we got into a car accident, and I went from the back seat into the front seat, and we had law enforcement approach us and whatnot, and I remember going to the hospital that day. But other than that, that was about the age of 3.5, maybe 4, but that was my earliest childhood memory. Some of the memories I have with my bio family are of, we had a little house in Morristown, Indiana, and I remember my biological father had 3 hobbies. Those hobbies were drinking, smoking, and my sisters. And I remember one day my father was doing something he shouldn't have been doing, and I ended up going into the kitchen and playing with the stove and actually caught the house on fire by accident. I was way little. And a couple of the other memories that I have are living in a farmhouse in Morristown, Indiana by a cemetery. I remember that vaguely. And then I didn't really have any contact with my bio family until I had turned 18 and I was aging out. I remember seeing my bio father in a old store where they were living, him and a friend of his, and it had a dirt floor. He ended up passing away in 1997 in Indianapolis, Indiana. And I remember going to that hospital room just because I was kind of peer pressured into it by his sister, and seeing just this miserable person laying in a bed all alone by himself. And my birth mother, I've been told she's still alive somewhere in Indiana, but I have not had contact with her for years. I do have a few siblings I'd like to talk about. One is my middle sister. She's 6 years older than I am. She's older than me, but she's the middle sister. And then I have an older sister by the name of Paula. My middle sister's name is Stacy. My oldest sister's name is Paula, and she's 6 years older than Stacy. And we are all exactly 6 years apart, believe it or not. And then I believe the last count that I had was I had 35 foster brothers and sisters that I had throughout my time in foster care. Well, I was in a total of 13 different foster homes going through the system. And it wasn't just that it was me. My oldest sister, Stacy, had cerebral palsy. And early on, it was tough to take us both because of her cerebral palsy and me being a very young, active little guy. And so we moved from home to home because the average time and length in a foster care home is about 2 to 3 years. And then they would move us so that we wouldn't get too attached, both the parents to us and us to them. And in that was a couple of different, there was one home that they wanted to actually adopt us, and they tried it, but it didn't work out because of our history of what was going on with us and going through the court process and everything else. But there was some abuse in there. One home, which I'll talk about a little bit later, I was in for over 13 years. Well, the home that I was in for 13 years, I remember sitting on those cold benches in the juvenile courthouse in Shelbyville, Indiana, and hearing the click-clack of the shoes coming up and down the halls. We spent hours there while the rights of my parents were being taken from them. And I mean days. We actually spent during the trial and everything else. And my parents lost their parental rights because my mother chose my birth father over us. If I may go into a little bit of detail with that, what had happened was she had been married 3 different times. My sisters and I all had different fathers, my bio sisters, and it seems like at every 6-year pattern she changed and had a new husband. And I was the youngest. I did have another sibling that was younger than me, but my understanding is that child died of SIDS, crib death. And so, with that being said, the foster home that we went to was out of Greensburg, Indiana. And I'm only going to use first names because I don't want to disrespect anyone. But their names were Jim and Cheryl. And I remember Cheryl picking us up in a van. And the first words out of her mouth to me and my sister with our well-known black trash bags that we had to move our stuff in was, we were nothing but plain white trash and we were never going to amount to anything. And that started my life with Cheryl and Jim. Over the course of 13 years, I had 35 foster brothers and sisters that were in and out of this specific foster home. And there was so much what I classify as narcissistic abuse, emotional, mental, physical. It was bad, and I still have scars on my body from some of those beatings that I got, and some of those things where we would take care of elderly people in the home as well, because that was a moneymaker for them, and I would have to miss school just to be able to take care of them, so that Cheryl could go do what she wanted to do for the day. And I'd have to come home from sports, and I'd have to do little things here and there. That we had an acre garden that we grew, and I loved to garden. That's the only thing that I brought out of foster care that I still love to do, is plant and harvest. And my foster father, God bless his heart, I don't think that he really knew what was going on with what Cheryl was doing to us. I don't believe that wholeheartedly, because I know his heart, and I know what kind of a man he is. And so when I tell you that it stunned me for a long time in life, I'm 44, and I just found out 2 years ago who I really was. Sorry. When I think of my mentor, God rest his soul, his name was Frank Perkins. He's the reason why I wear this today.
You're fine.
I remember I met Frank in 8th grade. He was my social studies teacher. And throughout my high school time, I was one of his student teachers because I wanted to just be around him all the time. And he actually would tell me stories of his time in the Army. And I would sit for hours. I remember sitting on that cold, hard floor, cross-legged, just staring at him as he told me some of the stories of him being in the war and him serving our country and whatnot. And he's the reason why I joined the military, is because I wanted that sense of family that I didn't get in foster care and I never had growing up. And he passed away shortly after I joined the military, but the impact he had on my life is still ongoing. Well, I actually got out of the foster care system when I was 19 years old. I was held back in 8th grade because of my grades weren't the best in the world, and I needed to repeat 8th grade. So I got out of foster care my senior year of high school. It was fall of senior year, and I remember my foster mother had hit me. She hit me so hard that I fell down a flight of stairs. And I was 18 at the time, and I couldn't take it anymore. I couldn't. I'd had enough. I knew that had I stayed, I was going to be, that something bad was going to happen, because I was just mad at the world. I was very angry with her, and I wanted to push back. So I walked to my friend's house. His name was Gary. It was just down the road. And I sat in his house and I said, Bud, I need to use your phone. And he asked me why, and I told him. And he called his dad, and his dad came home. And his dad and I sat and talked, and his dad actually called my caseworker and said, you need to come talk to this young man now. There had been rumors of the abuse, but I had always covered it up because that's the way I was taught and trained to do. And that day, well, it was enough. So I ended up staying with Gary and his dad for a short time while they found a home. And I ended up staying in a neighboring county with a foster family that needed, I guess, another young man in their home. And I ended up graduating in their home and going on and joining the military in August of 1995. Military in 1995. And when I joined the military, my first duty station, believe it or not, was South Korea. And when I joined the military, it reminded me a lot of Cheryl and the abuse that she did, the control, the manipulation. And I actually signed a 4-year contract, and I got out of that off active duty early because I couldn't handle it. And so I did a short stint of about 2 years, 3 years, where I didn't know what I was going to do. I needed to be free, I felt. And then I joined the Wisconsin National Guard. Once I joined the National Guard, I got that sense of family back. I got that sense of brotherhood back. From there, I transferred over to the Army Reserve, and I joined a drill sergeant unit out of Madison, Wisconsin. And that's where I really felt at home. I served as a drill sergeant candidate and a drill sergeant for many years until I commissioned in 2008 on a dare by my battalion commander, believe it or not. He dared 5 of us to put our packets in because I was an E7. He said, and I told him, if they do it, I'll do it. And out of the 5 packets, I was the one that was selected to go direct commission from enlisted to officer. And it's had a profound impact on my life. It's saved my life, in my opinion. If I could change one thing about the foster care system, we'd be here all day for me telling you how I would change it, because there's so many things that need to be changed. The entire system needs to be overhauled. Biblically speaking, foster care was supposed to be run by the churches. It was supposed to be identified because we are orphans, in a sense, and our families need help, and the government has took it over, and they've been running it, and then now you've got different organizations that are doing it for the government, and there's just so many disconnects. There's so many different standards and things like that you have to go through, and really the hearts of the people that are foster care parents. There are some that are great, don't get me wrong. There are some that are in it for the right reasons, and that's to give hope, love, and peace, and guidance and education to some. But then there's some that were like mine, that all they wanted was the paycheck. And trust me, it's not a lot. For those foster care kids, I actually like YouTube, if I could. For those foster care kids, they're watching me right now. I want to tell you, whatever you've been through, whatever you're going through, it does not define who you are. I was told I was plain white trash and I was never going to amount to anything. I am one of the 1%. I've actually gone on through the military and I've achieved graduating as a Delta Mu Delta grad with my master's degree. You set your goals in life. You are the one that defines you. Through God, you define you. It doesn't matter where you come from. It doesn't matter what you've done. And it doesn't matter what happened yesterday or today. Tomorrow's your future. Grab it and go for it. To the foster care parents that are watching, I'd like to tell you this. Trust me, I know I was a booger. It can be stressful. There's days where you just don't think you're getting through to that child. But trust me, you are. Don't quit. Don't stop. Because tomorrow, today, it doesn't matter. You're going to get through and the light switch is going to turn on. So keep doing what you're doing. Some of the good things that have happened in my life. One of the things is I've taken that statement that was made to me that I was going to be plain white trash and never amount to anything. And that's been my drive in life, is to prove her wrong, to prove Cheryl wrong. Like I stated earlier, I graduated with a 3.9 GPA, or 3.95 GPA from Webster University here in Missouri for my master's in organizational security management, business and security management. I have my undergrad through Liberty University and a multidisciplinary studies with the COGS in business and communication. I have a great family. I have a little guy that I love to death. He's 6 now, and he's a blessing because I get to be the father I never had. I get to coach his teams. I've been able to achieve the rank of captain. I just found out a few days ago that I made the majors list for promotion. And I actually am a civilian law enforcement officer as well for a local police department here in Missouri. So when I tell you the sky's the limit, I came from a very, very, very abusive background. And if it weren't for my pastors that I've attached myself to along the way, through, there's a church in Rossville, Illinois called Life Church. Pastor Beverly Tucker has been a huge impact in my life with the deliverance ministry and the healing ministry that her and Evelyn run, as well as, that she and Evelyn run, as well as just talking to someone and working through those things that happened in earlier life and actually being able to not only grow up in that aspect, but to understand some of the things that happened. And as I've gotten older, I've understood a lot more. And it wasn't until I was actually 41, 42 years old, I realized who Daniel was and what I needed to become and who I am today, not who I was.
Foster TV's My Story is a HEDFRA production, only on Foster TV.